Divas, welcome back to the show. I am so excited to have a repeat guest, and he is also one of my OGs. Welcome back, Congressman Jimmy Patronis. No, he wasn't a congressman the last time he joined us. He was the chief financial officer of the great state of Florida, and he won a special election. Now he is serving in Congress. We talk all about what it's like to be in DC, how it's different than Tallahassee, the possibility of reapportionment. What are the issues on voters' minds? DOGE, tax reform, we get soup to nuts, but stick with us because he'll give us some great tips for cooking going into the holiday season. You don't want to miss it. Deeper dive with Congressman Jimmy Patronis.
Just because we have a majority in the Senate doesn't mean that we are in control in the Senate. We have influence over legislation, the agenda, but, we don't have total control over what gets passed out. So there's got to be concessions and give and take and negotiating.
You're listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida. Let's dive in.
Oh, Divas, I am so excited to have, he is truly one of my OGs, and I'm really delighted to have Congressman Jimmy Patronis joining us again. He is not in the speakeasy with us, but he's back home in the district, and he's going to tell us all about what's going on in Washington and the shutdown and so much more. Welcome back to the show, Congressman Patronis.
Thanks for having me, Dara. My mom's TV, is it too loud? I need to turn it down.
I can't hear it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it down just a little bit.
Okay, just a tad. We can hear it now, yeah. Okay. Congressman Patronis is visiting. He's visiting his mama. He's a good son. He's taking time out from visiting his mama to join us on the podcast this week.
I'm at her house doing this.
Yeah, so. Yep. Listen, let's get right into it. It's been a minute since we've spoken, not since you've joined Congress.
Right.
And tell me, do you miss Tallahassee? Are you enjoying Washington, D.C.?
I miss the people. You always miss the people. The Department of Financial Services had some of the most amazing public servants. And, when you pour yourself into an agency for 8 years, you really, they're not employees, they're family. And you keep up with them and you get excited when their families grow, whether it's becoming grandparents or graduations or marriages. So, look, the folks there that run that agency are some of the best human beings I've ever had the honor to work with. So definitely, I miss them. And I miss some of the guys in the legislative process. Jim Boyd and I served in the state house together. And I think Jim is just a pure gentleman.
Incoming president of the Senate. So
yeah, and he's just a good guy at a chapter of his life that it's so awesome that he will be able to be leading the Senate chamber, and I'm just a big fan of his.
Well, he's got a very easygoing temperament, so we'll see how that we maybe could use a little bit of. And Ben Albritton, too. President Albritton seems to be more of an easygoing kind of guy. But I think we all in this country right now need to bring the temperature down a little bit in terms of politics, don't you?
Yeah, well, I think the election cycles always bring out some sharp elbows.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a lot of nastiness that is happening in Washington, D.C. right now. And it's funny, it's all tying back to state politics in Virginia and New Jersey and local in New York. So, it's kind of crazy how those races there are having such an influence on how decisions are being made in Washington, D.C.
Can you give us any examples of that? I know that New York City mayor's race is a real hot button.
Yeah, so some of the interesting dynamics you've got is you've got Chuck Schumer, who at least in my opinion, is the most powerful Democrat in the United States. Let's say this, the most powerful elected Democrat. And so as he went along with the Republicans in a cooperative rate back in March to run a clean CR to open government, keep it operational, he
Mm-hmm.
just got eviscerated by his base. Matter of fact, I think he had a book tour that he was planning on
All
rolling out
right.
about that same time, and he pulled the plug on it altogether. So now you've got Mondami, who is now this new darling of the Democratic Party, and more of the liberal side of the party, whether it be the AOCs or the Bernies,
Mm-hmm.
have got there and been such huge champions for Mondami. And look, he comes across charismatic and good
Mm-hmm.
looking, and Schumer does not want to give in to that side of the party. So if he then works with the Republicans right now with an extension of this CR, then the feeling is that will turn down voter intensity on behalf of Democrats. So whether it be in Virginia with a heated contest with the attorney general and governor's seat there, in the New York mayor's race or the New Jersey governor's race, they're trying to keep the Democratic energy as enthusiastic as
Mm.
possible. And so what they don't need is the leaders in Washington being perceived as working with President Trump on anything.
It's really, that's problematic for you as a congressman. I think I've lost track, but in the beginning days of the government shutdown, you were tweeting out like day X of the
Yeah.
Schumer shutdown, calling, kind of hanging that around the Democrats' necks. I've been talking to some folks and I've seen some polling, and I think that like regular people are they don't know who to blame. They feel like everybody's to blame for this. And so you're getting heat, they're getting heat, nobody's happy with it. I was just talking to your aide. I don't think he's getting paid. There's, the VA is there's access issues with care. We're hearing about other issues with
Mhm.
food banks and things like that. So, what do you think is the solution here? How are we going to get through this? And do you see sort of the light at the end of the tunnel with this?
Yeah, I mean, I really, I think it all comes to a head after November, the Tuesday in November, the first Tuesday in November
Hmm.
after the first Monday's elections. As those elections go, then there will be some breathing room, and whether there'll be new Democrats to rally around, or a mixed bag of Democrats and Republicans moving forward, I think then that will allow a decision to be made on behalf of the Democrats in the Senate, and then you roll right immediately into Thanksgiving, which kind of gives a nice distraction for
Mm-hmm.
people, and then you come back after Thanksgiving and you start to roll your sleeves up, and then we start talking about subsidies. The uh, the Obamacare subsidies, you've got subsidies that have kind of always been there, but you had enhanced subsidies that were established during COVID. So this is what the Democrats are spun up on, is they want the enhanced subsidies. This was been
We're
their
talking about
argument
healthcare
forever.
now.
Yeah, so this is still getting into some of the paralysis that we've had with
Yeah.
getting back open. But, I like to remind people, the Republicans of the House of Representatives, we passed a clean CR to vote, keep government open, to keep our
Mm-hmm.
government employees paid, our air traffic controllers at TSA, our military paid. And unfortunately, the politics of those elections and where they're trying to take the high ground is on the subsidies, but those subsidies don't expire till the end of the year. So there's plenty of time to talk subsidy.
Well, let's talk about that in a moment, but I wanted to go back to, Jimmy Patronis goes to Washington because,
Yeah.
like I said, is the first time we've had a chance to chat since you left the CFO's office and you won that special election, and President Trump supported you, and he's also endorsed you again, I think, in your run for reelection. What was the biggest surprise when you were served in the state legislature?
Mhm.
What was the biggest surprise when you joined Congress?
My biggest surprise, which to me disarms a lot of people, is just how nice everyone is. Then the process in Congress, there are just a lot of really good people. I mean, a lot of them both sides of the aisle. They love their country. They are there because they want to make a difference. And there's definitely, because we only have a one seat majority right now. It's really difficult to move things along. The speaker is incredibly accessible, House leadership, but you know what? He's got to be accessible when we only have a one seat majority. So he's working himself silly to hold people's hands, answer questions. So we've got good members in the process, and then both sides of the aisle, they have their terrorists, which can definitely make things challenging, painful, and it's just the rule of numbers. So if you got 100 people in the room, there's going to be that 10% that
Hmm.
are just a real pleasure to avoid.
Pleasure to avoid that. Yeah, that is so typical of Jimmy Patronis to phrase it as nicely as you can. It's a little bit different up there because here the Republicans control everything, and everybody was, the cabinet seats, the super majorities in the House and the Senate. And so you certainly don't get the kind of roadblocks, you don't get the kind of standoff that you have in Washington right now. And only this year are we seeing a little intra-party kind of, I call it rock'em sock'em robots with the speaker and the governor, and they have not backed down. They're still at it at each other over this property tax thing. Did you expect that? Was that a big, like was it kind of a surprise to you at how different it is when Democrats actually have some shred of control or power?
So, well, and that's one thing that I think the public has difficulty keeping up with, because of how bills are passed in the Senate with the filibuster rule and all that. In the Senate, you have to have 60 votes to do anything.
Mhm.
So 60 votes in the Senate means you have to have at least 7 Democrats participating with Republicans in order to get things done in Washington.
Thanks for
So
reminding
just
us about that. Yeah.
yeah, so just because we have a majority doesn't mean that we are in control in the Senate. We have influence over legislation, the agenda, but we don't have total control over what gets passed out. So there's got to be concessions and give and take and negotiating. But as what you've got going on in Florida, it's so funny. Dare, my first legislative session, Marco Rubio was Speaker of the House, and
Mhm.
what was Marco's single biggest, signature, piece of legislation was getting rid of property taxes and swapping it out for sales tax. And
Mhm.
in the House, we did pass a variation of it where I think we had targeted we'd get rid of homestead property taxes, and then it would be replaced with a 2.5% increase in sales tax. And Ken Pruitt was in the Senate, and the Senate just wouldn't take it up. So those challenges right now, it's very popular with the base, and just like right now in Georgia, where Florida wants to beat the drum, they want to get rid of property taxes. In Georgia, they're beating the drum, they want to get rid of income taxes. So it's definitely great to use as a stump speech on the
Mhm.
campaign trail for 2028.
Sure. What do you think about property tax reform in Florida? What do you have any thoughts about doing away with property taxes, or where do you stand?
I've voted before in the House in order to get rid of property taxes. So I mean, yeah, it would be great. It would be a huge shot in the arm to the economy in a number of different ways. The problem that you've got is how you get those dollars back to the local governments. And so and then you have the other argument. Well, let me back up a minute. So we tried multiple different ways giving property tax relief over the years, and I remember ultimately, as we had all these fantastic formulas and ideas out there, the only thing that really resonated with the voters that would hit the 60% threshold in Florida, because you have to have 60%,
Right.
is increasing the homestead exemption. That's easy to understand. The voters get it,
Mhm.
and they will support it. So, I think ultimately, I think that's probably the easiest sell that the legislature can pass that actually can get the 60% voter support. The problem you're going to run into, so let's say they increase the homestead exemption to $100,000. Now, that's great. But then you will have counties like a Holmes County or
Right.
Liberty or Calhoun that you will devastate those counties because it'll make almost the entire county exempt
That's
because
right.
of just what's been built in over time. So now who is going to, and they're maxed out in their millage. They can't raise their millage anymore. So, how are you going to fund them? And so I know there's dialogues, well, the state will fund them. Well, it's easy to say now, but the
Mm-hmm.
state always doesn't have a perfect revenue stream. So,
And then they
I
have to
feel,
come back with their hat in their hand every year and say,
yeah, it's
or you create some kind of a formula, I guess. But if I were Holmes County, I'd be worried about that.
so, and then so when you increase that homestead, say you increased $100,000,
Right.
then you're going to have a shift because now you will have an increase of property taxes on non-homesteaded properties, which means, arguably rental properties are going to have to be paying more in property taxes. So now rents are technically going up. So it's a very challenging process. You're going to have to give those counties some dedicated revenue source in order to offset. And the state of Florida's got fantastic revenues right now. It's amazing how well we're doing financially. So yeah, there are some stars aligned right now to be able to pull this off. I'm just worried about year 4, year 5, when we have some type of a correction, and then then we're in some type of a panic. Again, I'm a gray hair. I've seen this show before.
Right. Everything old is new again, right? Everybody
Yeah.
thinks that they've invented something new. And I do remember that was Marco's thing, right? And we've had a bunch of things on the, there have been several legislatively proposed property tax reforms that have been put on the ballot that the voters did not pass.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and so where I feel like now I'm just kind of like spitballing with you right now.
sure.
Who I really kind of feel sorry for is the young couple in their
Yeah.
30s wanting to buy their first home. It
Yeah.
ain't happening anymore.
How
I
do
mean,
you
they're going to
enter
have
the
two.
housing market? I
Yeah.
don't know how young people do it.
So I think, what would be, an option is you go out, and if you're a young couple, both residents in Florida, give them a 100%, exemption on their home for the first 5 years, 6 years. Pick a period of time to allow them to get themselves financially stable,
Hmm.
and then hopefully they've built up enough equity where they can get their life started and actually own a home. And at that point, at least you've given them breathing room, because I think home ownership is the absolute best force for good. When somebody owns a home, man, they take care of their yard, they care
Mm-hmm.
about their community, they want to raise a family, they
They
show up to
vote.
work.
They want to vote.
Yeah, and you're going to have to do something, and then maybe on the back end, maybe you do some type of a relief for seniors. But you gotta, I'd love to see a means test tied into it, because it drives me crazy
Yeah.
when you see folks get amazing benefits, and they really could probably be fine without them.
That's right. But do you think we have a property tax problem or a property valuation problem? And then if you get into where, okay, well, their values have increased and so their taxes have gone up. I guess if you want to sell your home, you want it to have increased in value, right? You don't want it to be static. So I guess it's kind of a chicken egg issue.
Yeah, people like to talk out both sides of their mouth, and I'd be
Right,
right as
right.
hell that my property tax is too high, my house isn't worth like this. But when I go sell my house, oh, I
That's
can't
right,
take that low of a
right.
price. So yeah, there's a lot of scenarios in government where the stories don't jive. But we've got to look. Look, I've got my home. I'm homesteaded. I'm in a good place in life. But again, who I care about are my nieces, my nephews, these other young
Mm.
folks that are looking for this first opportunity. I mean, well, right now I'm looking at, maybe even for my own kids, trying to invest in something that may look like along the lines of a duplex, because when they get old enough, then they've got something they can figure out what
As
they
a
want to
rent,
do.
well, they can always use it as an income too,
Yeah.
as a rental property. They're fortunate to have a father that's looking out for them like that. And we'll be right back with Jimmy Patronis. And now I'd like to tell you all about an upcoming event sponsored by the News Service of Florida. Florida is aging fast, and solutions can't wait. On Wednesday, November 19th, the news service is hosting the Florida Aging Summit at the Doubletree Tallahassee on Adams Street. Michelle Branham, Secretary of the Florida Department of Elder Affairs, as well as leaders from the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration, the Florida Senate, and multiple area agencies on aging, will be tackling caregiving, healthy aging, housing, and workforce issues. It's practical, it's nonpartisan, and it's built for action. Seats are limited. To learn more, go to newsserviceflorida.com and click on the Events tab. That's the Florida Aging Summit on November 19th at the Doubletree Tallahassee on Adams Street. See you there. Divas, you know what time it is. You know, what time is it? It's time for the news in haikus. The news in haikus. Tally to DC. Ex-CFO talks shutdown. Fry up the turkey. The news in haikus. The news in haikus. Don't forget, we'd love to hear your haiku. You can slide them into my DMs, or you can send them to podcasts. That's podcasts with an S at e.newsserviceflorida.com. Wherever you're listening, please don't forget to subscribe and give us a rating if you like what we're doing. And we're back with Jimmy Patronis. As the former CFO, what do you think about DOGE? What do you? I guess maybe we're not calling it DOGE now. Your successor, Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ngolia, is calling it FAFO, and we know what that means. We won't say it. Your mother's within earshot, so I'm not.
I don't know, Mom. What's FAFO mean? She didn't hear me.
No, don't. She's within earshot, so I'm not going to say it. You don't have headphones on. So what do you think about DOGE?
I think at all levels of government, there can be greater efficiency found. And I've seen, even when we had tough times in Florida back in 08, 09, we still found ways to fund, infrastructure and projects that maybe could have waited another year or not. So I always think that government can be run more efficiently. I don't know if the numbers that have been bouncing around, that some of these counties are potentially seen as overspending. I don't know where those numbers come from,
right,
or how they came to those conclusions. But I tell people all the time, I was talking to one of my sheriffs this weekend, and we were talking about his budget, and he puts together a budget with his county, and it's a 3-year budget. And so it gives him opportunity. He knows this is my budget is going to be for the next 3 years, and I got to live within it. And so he liked the trust the county was giving him in that.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is all part of the same thing. If you don't engage the government that you've got, you get the government that you deserve. And so if the CFO is pointing out poor spending habits, then he's exposing potential vulnerabilities.
Yeah, I mean, he could be
during an election.
He could be. I mean, we'll have him on. We've had him on before he was CFO, while he was still in the Senate. I guess the question is, how much do we want to give the local governments and the people who live in those communities autonomy to decide what they want to spend money on? People in Panama City might not care about the same things that people in Wilton Manors do.
1,000%. And so this is where you try to give them some local control to be able to do this. But I was talking to a member of the state house the other day, and back when Ray Sampson was in the process, he was a big proponent of sunset review. And I feel like every single district, should have sunset review. Pick the period, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. But then there you go through a cycle where every single one is up for sunset. And then every single one of those governments or entities or special districts that they want to be reestablished, then they have to go get a member of the legislature and a senator to then go file bills to reauthorize them. Because there are to what the CFO was pointing out, probably districts and governments out there that have probably their purposes have been met, and maybe they're not as impactful today as they were, say, 25 years ago. So maybe now it's a time to force them to come out and justify their existence. And I think that's a great way to find property tax savings. I think it's a great way to return dollars back to the public. And so maybe this is kind of a hybrid solution of how you deal with property taxes and government spending.
That's interesting because I remember former Senate President Tom Lee was really hot. I think it was Tom Lee was hot on zero-based budgeting.
Yeah.
Right. I'm pretty sure it was him. I don't think it was John McKay. I think it was Tom Lee.
I think it was Tom Lee, and then also I remember Juan Zapata was another one.
Right, over in the House.
And you should, but here's the problem, Dara. We've got so much prosperity in the state of Florida, so much prosperity, so much cash coming into our state. We're not studying that volume in a way. So we've done other good things. Got aggressive in paying down debt. So there's other things that we have done that haven't been pure zero-based budgeting, but have been significant returns of revenues back in ways that it's benefit the state financially. So it's been kind of a version of it that's probably not as technical.
I see. Not as dramatic, maybe, right?
Yeah. Just kind of not doing it with a scalpel, doing it more in broad strokes.
Sure. What are you hearing about reapportionment in Florida, the mid-decade redrawing of congressional maps?
So, I haven't dug real deep into it. What we're seeing happening in other states, arguably, I think Texas will pick up about another 5 potential Republican leaning seats. Out in California, it's got what's called Proposition 50. So in California, in a lot of states, they have a nonpartisan election drawing district commission. So in California, they're saying, okay, we're going to get rid of the bipartisan part of it, and we're just going to throw it in the legislature's hands and let them draw the lines however they see fit. And
can I just say, oi?
Yeah. So I mean, you with some of these redistricting initiatives, there's definitely some Pandora's boxes being open. If you look at what happened the last time under Ron DeSantis was governor, and remember, congressional maps drawn by the legislature do not go to the governor. The governor has zero influence over these things of any type of a statutory power, but he can flex. And so
he sure did.
Does the governor has the ability to veto them?
He vetoed. That's what he did. He vetoed it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He has no influence over
drawing. Well, until Ron DeSantis did, he vetoed and he drew. He did both.
Yeah. So I mean, and I think that's exactly, I get kudos to Ron DeSantis of what he did with that map, where he got rid of a lot of what we're seeing as gerrymandered maps. And you had some members like Al Lawson, whose seat then became a challenge with a seat like Gwen Graham. It became a Republican seat.
Right.
So, but the lines were truer to the constitutional requirements that's in our Constitution.
Because of fair districts.
That's right.
Yeah. There's also, I don't know how closely you've been following this, but there's this case up at the U.S. Supreme Court about a Louisiana map, and that could have a significant impact on some districts in Florida, at least one district that I know of, regarding majority minority, seats. And so I think that we could be seeing a lot coming in terms of what legislators are allowed to do when it comes to drawing districts. And I was going to ask, one of the things that happens, though, when you redraw districts, you change, you can't just change one district. That's going to change the adjoining district or the district that abuts it. And so I was wondering if you had heard anything about your district possibly changing if they're looking at redrawing the maps in Florida.
In my map, I can't go any further west. So, I'm kind of...
You're in Alabama. Yeah.
Yeah. So, with whatever change might happen, I don't see Congressional District 1 changing much. I don't see Congressional District 2 changing much. You've got, those districts down in Broward and Palm Beach County and Miami-Dade where there's probably a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
of a wiggle room, maybe around Sarasota, maybe around the Orlando area,
Mm-hmm.
where those can be shifted around. But I don't see anything north of Gainesville changing much.
What about just the process? What about the idea that it's mid-decade, we don't do this, we just do it when the census comes out? What do you think about doing the redistricting mid-decade? Do you think that's something that we should be moving forward with?
So it would be mid-decade by the most recent census data. Again, I'm not an expert. I've never sat on a redistricting committee, but you would still be working with the same data
Right.
that from the most recent census. So I'm not sure if you went and revisited that data, what type of changes it could present. But that's for the legislature to determine.
Okay. Very politically very
True. That's why
very
I don't have a
delicate.
dog in the hunt.
No, I got you. I got you. Well, we've got the midterm elections right around the corner. I just mentioned you got an endorsement from the president. What do you think will be the biggest issues on voters' minds going into 2026?
So, I mean, it's always to me deals with the economy. I was talking to a buddy of mine's a boat salesman, and he was telling me how, people right now they're holding on to their boats. They're not buying new boats. They're not selling their boats. They're holding on to them. So, to me, I think this is kind of folks that are, once they've got something, they're probably waiting to still allow more settling to take place. The tariffs, is even though they've generated a lot of revenue, I think that's definitely creating some anxiety for some folks because they just don't understand them. Hell, I don't totally understand them. So I
Me either.
think
And they
as
change like day to day too, right?
yeah, and so like right now, the president is in Japan. There's a lot of pressure, being that China historically has bought over $1 billion worth of soybeans from the United States every single year. This year they haven't bought any yet, so this is
Ah.
definitely on the president's radar, and this goes into some of the negotiations that are taking place. And this guy is a workaholic, so I'll look at what's happened over in Israel, and it's not fully coming for Landon, but a lot has been accomplished with his presidency as it's come to the hostages being released.
Mhm.
And then gosh, just look at it. Here he's in Egypt, and you've got world leaders from all over the place show up within 20 minutes to be there for this historic summit, and
Mm.
he's calling them all on a first name basis like they're all his employees. It's just a different time in our country, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's been just hitting some reset buttons,
Mhm.
and
And we were
he's
talking
rolling some
about
stories.
what voters are going to be thinking about going into 2026.
Yeah, so gas prices are going in the right direction. I do think you'll see interest rates will start to drop, and all that is going to ultimately help people when interest rates start to drop. That's going to help the cost of carry of money. So there's a lot of good things I think are still yet to come, and then the full impact of the one big beautiful bills tax cuts. Those take about a year for those to sink in, and that's why the president was so adamant that we pass it as soon as possible because he wanted people to start seeing those benefits as soon as possible.
And then that helps you all who are on the ballot next
Yeah,
year, right?
that's right. Well, and I think even you would agree that the citizens of the state of Florida spend their money better than Tallahassee does. And that's something our friend Alan Benz always used to say to me. And I feel that way about Washington, D.C. Rick Scott and I were talking, and as we talk about the healthcare subsidies, his attitude is, you know what? We can get subsidies, or we can just give the money to the people directly, and they can make up their mind where they want to spend it. And I'm kind of, that's not a bad idea.
Let's talk a little bit about the healthcare. you're calling them the subsidies. This is people signing up for insurance through the exchanges. I saw somebody, a state legislator here in Florida, a Democrat, posted something about her daughter is on the exchange, and she just got a notice that her insurance was going up from like 240 a month to 900, ballpark somewhere around that. So people are getting sticker shock from that. I think that's something that we don't really quite fully, those of us who get insurance through our employers might not really appreciate how important that is, and that low cost coverage is to people who don't have insurance through their employer. So my question is, where do you think we're going to land on the healthcare subsidies or on that package as a whole?
I think you've had a subsidy. The subsidy's already in place. What the debate is the enhanced subsidy that was created during COVID and was agreed upon by also the Democrats that they would expire the end of this year. So this is where they're clamoring. And so these were COVID era enhanced subsidies that were put in place. And, just to rubber stamp and just extend them all over again, I think is premature. I think it's really important to sit down and make a concerted effort to look at the encounter data. What does this mean? What is it going to do to rates? But again, it's convenient to blame it on the subsidies because it's an emotional issue. But it really, the reason why we're not in Washington right now working on this is because these elections up in the northeastern part of the United States and their fear that it could affect Democratic voter turnout.
So we're all just on hold until the elections.
In my opinion, I'm stitching together a story from multiple sources. I talked to the White House earlier this week. This
Mhm.
was some details I'd gotten from them. We have our calls with the speaker, and then we just members talking to members. So I wish it was cleaner cut and easier to get to, but holding the line, when right now, here's what happened over the last 24 hours here in Northwest Florida. Hurricane Melissa is
Mm.
bearing down on Guantanamo Bay, and the United States Navy airlifted out almost 1,000 non-essential personnel. That's contractors, families, kids. Guantanamo has 5,500 personnel on the installation, and so airlifted them out, including about 300 pets, to Pensacola. And I get emotional just telling you this because
Mhm.
those families got flown out and landed in Pensacola. Pensacola threw together operations in order to stand them up. And a lot of the people that were doing all the work in Pensacola to do this were working there without getting a paycheck.
I was
I
going to
mean,
ask you about
they're
that.
being compensated. And so it makes me a little upset, because I'm not taking a paycheck right now, and I feel like I shouldn't get paid. But here's folks that are really comforting those in a time of
Mm.
need with safety and security and peace
Mm.
of mind and a roof over their head and food as they're evacuating out. Oh, by the way, they're federal employees that aren't getting paid.
That is emotional for me too. When I think about our people in the armed services, that I think they've been protected from these government shutdowns in the past. And do you know, you have a lot of veterans and active military in your district. So, what about them? What's going on with them? And how can we make sure that they're being taken care of?
So I really probably got the highest per capita of any member of Congress. So Senator Ron Johnson last week, and he's doing it again this week, he has got a bill proposed that would pay, all those military personnel, those essential folks, a paycheck.
Hmm.
Last week, it was voted down by the Democrats. They didn't even want to go there. This is why I'm telling you, it all boils down to leverage. And this is something that the Democrats have slipped up and said publicly that they have, unfortunately, they've got to use this leverage of our military personnel in order to make their case. It's the sausage being made that's probably about as bloody and nasty as I've ever seen it. I'll talk to our service members, whether it be at Herbert Field or NAS Pensacola or
Mhm.
Eglin. And, I typically am Jimmy taking care of the customer and ask them, what can I do for you? And they always say, can you pass a budget?
Mm.
Because they don't like being in the middle of this garbage either.
Well, I mean, a lot of people do live paycheck to paycheck.
100%, 100%. And you think about these young airmen, or these young sailors, they're 18 years old.
Right,
They're 19 years old.
right.
They've never had a checkbook. They barely had a regular
Mhm.
job, So,
Young families.
yeah. And
Uh,
so I had a woman call me this week, her and her husband. I don't even know her name because she wouldn't tell it to me, but I give out my phone number to everybody.
oh,
So she calls me, she gets my phone number. Her and her husband are retired military, or her husband was military, but they're both in the contractor world, and they're not getting paid. And she was just really calling to encourage, whatever we could do to get government operational. Because
mhm.
we've got money to make it. We've saved well, because there's so many that have not. And she was scared to give me her information because
Wow.
she's afraid that this could reflect poorly on her. There could be some type of retaliation or some type of FOIA request on who
Mm.
contacted Jimmy. So there's some people that are really in a tough
In
spot right
tight spot, yeah. Do you think that the Democrats doing what you say they're doing, like using this leverage to get past these elections next month, do you think that's going to affect the ability to get things done once they come back? Or do you think there's going to be like bitterness and resentment and that might further drive people apart?
No, I think once this election is over in November, I think things will start to come back together.
Okay.
Um, and but I'm convinced that because Chuck Schumer is now not going to be worried, and these others are not going to be worried that they're get along gang with, because the last thing you want, you know, Democrats to get out there, whoever it might be, because right now you have Democrat on Democrat fighting taking place.
Sure. Sure.
Okay. So what you don't want to do is trigger the AOCs or Bernie Sanders, basically saying, that Chuck Schumer, he's just a puppet for Donald Trump.
Right.
And and then and then it creates undermining. I could care less. I mean, I just soon see them all just, go out and fight all they want. But unfortunately, we've got to have cooperation to get anything done.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I have a couple more questions. I think we've got all the serious stuff out of the way, unless there's anything that you wanted to add. I have a couple of fun questions. And I notice do you have one of those aura rings?
God, really? You're just like a stalker, aren't you?
No,
That's like,
I can't tell you how many of my podcast guests have those rings.
yeah, I just got it this week.
Did
So
you? You just got it. Do you love
I
it?
think, well, there's a lot of other product rings out there.
Yeah.
I'd gotten a different one off of Amazon. It was like $50,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked fine. And then I'm a thrift shopper, so I saw a bunch of
Me
stackable
too.
coupons. Yeah, so I saw a bunch of stackable coupons for an Aura.
Oh,
So I
okay.
went ahead and tried it, and this is like day two. So
Okay, well,
jury's still out.
Blaze has one, and so does Joe Gruder's, which I thought was kind of interesting. So,
Yeah, my only so when they send you a little sizing kit, and I'm struggling a little bit, but I think I just need to lose some weight.
oh
So
well, I think that's what it's supposed to help you do. But anyway, all right. Was there anything serious that you wanted to add? Because I have some fun questions for us.
no,
Okay.
just thank you for making me cry
Well,
earlier. So
it wouldn't be a podcast with Jimmy Patronis if we didn't get you a little choked
yeah,
up with it.
yeah,
We both are that way.
that's right.
So as we begin to head into the holidays, what advice do you have for our divas? Any holiday advice?
For our divas, oh my
Well,
gosh.
these are our divas, our listeners. We call
So
them divas.
here's something holiday advice I would recommend. If you have never attempted to fry a turkey and you're going to prepare for your family for Thanksgiving or Christmas, it is so easy and it's so much fun and it's so fast. And so this is me putting my kitchen hat on. it's you're doing moist heat cooking.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of really neat systems out there to do it. I would just recommend if you're thinking about it and you're somewhat intimidated by the idea of deep frying a turkey, you should go all in and try it out, because it is definitely, once you try a deep fried turkey, that's the only way you'll ever want to have it ever
And
again.
do
So
you
that
do that every year for Thanksgiving? Do you do a deep fried turkey?
Yeah, pretty much. So what'll happen in my case is I got one of these fryers from Home Depot on clearance. And it was like $150 fryer for like $50.
Okay.
So I got it. So once it gets operational and hot, I'll have like 4 turkeys ready to go. And so,
So you're
whether
doing
it's like
everybody's turkeys for them because
exactly
it takes a lot of oil,
a
right?
lot of
Yeah.
oil. And so then afterwards, I just take the oil after the oil and I just throw it in the fire pit. So
Right.
just burn it off.
Yeah.
But the turkeys make such nice gifts for people also. So like
Oh,
we'll usually Katie will have a couple folks to do them. It just kind of depends on how the kids' holiday breaks with Easter. I mean, with
ah,
Thanksgiving. So,
oh,
and
it's.
then, and another thing that's really fun to do, I've only done it a couple times, is a deep fried prime rib.
I have
But
never heard of that.
yeah, so it's exact same concept. You take the prime rib, you rub it down with your dry rub, you'll inject it, you'll like let it sit overnight in your refrigerator, and you'll deep fry it, and it works out real quick. What the cool thing about it is you get this nice crust on
Right.
it. It's an expensive piece of meat.
Yeah.
When you decide to do that, just know that you screw it up. It's
Right.
like having a
Practice on
real big
some
piece of
Delmonico's first, right? Practice on
well,
something else first.
you can make a big piece of beef jerky. So,
Right. Okay, how about Greek salad with or without potato salad?
so I like it both ways. I have made it for folks before that have always had Greek salads without it, and I've talked them into putting potatoes in it. So you get some boiled potatoes, whether it be new skin potatoes or like what I would love to do at the restaurant. So Captain Anderson's, you have baked potatoes, and you can't bake a potato in 10 minutes. So literally, you got to bake more than you need every night.
Mhm.
You have baked potatoes left over. So what's great is you can take the baked potatoes, peel them, and then the skins make great for potato skins. But then you take the cooked potato
Mhm.
and you chop it up, and you toss it with your Greek dressing, maybe a little bit of mayonnaise,
Oh.
some onions, and you almost make like a spicy potato salad, and then you add it into what I like to do is put it as the base of my Greek salad and put the salad on top of it. And then you just
Ooh.
toss it. And oh, it's so
That
good.
sounds yummers.
Yeah.
Okay, anchovies on there?
For what? Absolutely not. Those
No
things, that's
anchovies.
bait. That's bait.
That's great.
That's bait. That's bait.
Okay, tell us what you really think. Okay, pumpkin spice, yay or nay?
I like pumpkin spice. I've made my own pumpkin pies before. We had the pumpkins from Halloween. And then so afterwards, I said, all right, well, I'm going to go and try to do it. So put them in the oven to get the skin to come off. And
Right?
then you realize you have an awful lot of pumpkin when you
Yes.
do that. So
Yes.
he's got pumpkin coming out of your ears.
Right.
So, but yeah, I love pumpkin spice. I love gingerbread. I love nutmeg. I love all of those. My mom used to make this amazing. I don't know it was a spice tea, but it was used with making with Tang instant orange breakfast drink. But good luck trying to find Tang
You
anymore.
can't. I don't think
You
they
can't
make it
find it.
anymore.
Yeah, but it would be Tang with cinnamon and with allspice. And so it was
So
real zesty, real pepper.
like a mulled tea.
Yeah, but it was so good. And
Wow.
it's almost impossible to drink it without, scorching your mouth.
Right. Well, I have one last one, and
Okay.
that is you're having dinner with 3 people at any point in history. Who would you invite?
That's I've had that question asked me before, and so I get torn because I'd love to have family back,
Right.
and so I'd love to have dinner with my dad or my uncle, or just to be able to sit down and catch up again. And there's all these, famous people in life that would be so cool to sit with. But man, if I could have just,
One night.
yeah, just one supper with, like my dad and my uncle and my grandfather, I'd get to ask all these questions I always regretted I never asked.
I love that answer, Congressman. I've asked this question many, many times, and I've always expected someone to say that, and you're the first person who ever has.
Yeah. I've been thinking about them a lot here lately, so that's why. Mom's turning 90 next week, so this is kind of probably also contributing to
A
Mom.
little reflection. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Right.
thank you so much for joining us.
course.
We're going to have you back on. And happy birthday to Mrs. Patronis. Thank you. She did a great job raising you. And I really appreciate you being here with us today.
Well, it's good to catch up. It's always a real pleasure, and you're a pro. There's definitely a class of journalism that is harder and harder to find in the process, and you're definitely one of those that it's hard to pull the wool over your eyes. You're always respectful, but you always have your facts in order, and we're just such a society now where it's just click 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 and flip through our phone. So I'm glad you did finally get up with the times and create a podcast.
I think that's what we used to call a backhanded compliment, but I'm taking it as a compliment. And
What did I tell you? I listened to the one that you did with Peter and Dixon the
oh
other day.
yeah.
And I bet you I sent that to like 30 other people.
Oh, cool.
It was very well done.
Thank you for that. And you'll have to send this one out to all your peeps. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll have you back maybe after New Year's.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dara.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida, hosted by News Service senior writer Dara Cam and produced by me, Mike Exline. Music for the podcast was recorded by Periodic Labs, LLC.